Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the study of antiquity and the Middle Ages. As always, I am your host, Nick.
So, as I was explaining, not an answer to him, and my sincerest condolences, it's an answer to her. Okay? Me versus her.
Back to the study of antiquity and the Middle Ages. As always, I am your host, Nick Barksdale, and today we are joined once again by Dr. Rebecca Futo-Kennedy. This is my question. Was Hannibal, the man who made Rome tremble, black?
As with any other question about this, right? First, let's call the thing what it is. This obsession with trying to make sure that this great general Hannibal, the man who makes Rome tremble, is a white man. Is, of course, the desire is strong, and we can go back to Dodge and sort of like the Caesar Alexander Hannibal, right? Because
Desire by who? I would like to ask, Professor, because personally I do not care. If anything, I'm a pro Scipio Africanus man. So, but then again, I'm sure there are some people that would want to claim every person of importance, a fringe, mind you, but they want to claim every person of importance to be white. But obviously, if she started like this, she's also going to mention those people that are trying to claim him and many other important people as black, even though they weren't, right? Because she's going to be fair. I accepted that there are some people that do try to do that with white people. There is also the other side of the equation. If you're going to be fair, you're going to mention both. Right, Professor?
Because he classifies Hannibal as one of the sort of great generals, we have to claim him. But also, I think going back to this tension that I already talked about with the issue of sub-Saharan, and what we mean by that sort of classification, is this desire also to for people who lay claim to descents from in North Africa that are anti-black as part of the sort of history of the development of that Arab invasion and modern imperialism. There's a strong tendency to want to make sure we separate that. So yes, okay, Egyptians might have black skin, might be black Africans, and even if their skin tones are slightly different, we still call them black today.
Now you're utilizing the modern term for black, and you're retro-applying it to the ancient world in order to justify a very arbitrary classification, as I have expressed.
And so, is Hannibal black? Again, the question is really, can we make him white? Which is
No. That's mental manipulation, Professor. We're not going to let that one go. The question is, Hannibal Barca black? It's a neutral question. Now, depending on who is asking it, then we could be like, yeah, I could agree that specific individual may be asking it for the wrong reasons. One of which could be, can we make him white? If that's the inherent purpose of asking a historical question, then yes, the premise of the question is flawed, not the question. However, you should then be honest and fair and say the same for the people who ask the question because they really want to make him black, but you don't, which means you are biased. Because at least I ask both and I reject both. That's true equality and academic neutrality. The fact that I need to explain that to a professor is beyond me.
What is Hannibal black? Again, the question is really, can we make him white? Which is the one thing he's not. He could be lots of things. The one thing he isn't is white, because that's not a category that they would have recognized. And it is actually one that fits. But if you look at his bust, right, we have this bust that I'll share with Nick, again, that comes from Capua. It was found in Italy, this bust of Hannibal. Because remember, of course, the Carthaginians controlled Spain, parts of Spain. They controlled parts of Italy. They controlled Sardinia and Sicily. If you go to Sicily, the history of Sicily is a sort of highly mixed African, Greek, indigenous, and Italian cultures, even.
Since you push for precision in language, I will use the same method onto you, because one thing that people do, for example, Simon Elliot, is that they will say Septimius Severus is the greatest African emperor, and he keeps saying African because he knows that people will translate that as black. And the reason why I know that is because at one point he actually did slip and said he was the greatest black African emperor. He did say that. As people of this political persuasion will do that. So do extremists on the other side, but this is important because we're focusing on this right now. They will use language in a way that allows them to be not specific, vague, so that they push the message they want without having to say the stuff that would actually get debunked. I'm still gonna debunk you though, because I know exactly what you're doing. Look at this.
He could be lots of things. The one thing he isn't is white, because that's not a category that they would have recognized. And it isn't.
Because that's not a category they would have recognized, then they wouldn't recognize the modern category of black either. It's either, Professor, linguistically speaking, because you're not a linguist. Either you apply the ancient terminology and you stick to it, whether it's we are using black or white, or you apply the modern terminology and you stick to it. You can't say, oh yeah, the people would be black because that's how we would modernly recognize it, so you consider black as a term fit for description, even when it comes to how you retro-identify a people, aka the Egyptians. So in that case, you're okay with the fact that black is a category they wouldn't have recognized. But when it comes to white, no, it's not valid. That's the one thing he certainly isn't, because they wouldn't have recognized that term because it's a modern term. This shows a tremendous dishonesty when it comes to how language is systematically used to convey a preconceived message. Problem is, these are recorded and I can dissect them. I can pause you anytime I want and I can dissect your language, and I will. Because if there is one thing I cannot stand is intellectual dishonesty and propaganda, masked as academia. These two things, I'll fight them until the end of my days. Doesn't matter where they come from or for what political persuasion. I would like to also underline that the Romans did refer and did use the term white. Of course, it's different to how we use it today, also because people use it in different ways. And that's in fact one of the things that I will focus. What do you mean by white, Professor? I'll get to that in a second. I want to let her talk first. So put a pin on that. The actual definition of white we are working with: clarity before explanation, clarity of language. We need to make sure we understand each other. She's not doing that. She's keeping it purposely vague. But once again, the Romans did use it. They classify the world with black, white, and blonde. Blonde being the Germanic, white being themselves, so Mediterraneans, Italians, Greeks, and then black being the Ethiopians.
Actually, one that fits. But if you look at his bust, right, we have this bust that I'll share with Nick. Again, that comes from Capua. It was found in Italy, this bust of...
Probably not him.
Of Hannibal, because remember, of course, the Carthaginians controlled Spain, parts of Spain. They controlled parts of Italy. They controlled Sardinia and Sicily. If you go to Sicily, the history of Sicily is a sort of highly mixed African, Greek, indigenous, and Italian cultures. Even today, I think they're still not sure how Italian they are down there.
You're wrong, we're Italian. I'm Sicilian, we are Italian. This is one thing that really pisses me off. Yes, let me say it, okay? Because this is, since she is so clearly on the politically correct side and we need to defend indigenous people, I'm an indigenous Sicilian, okay? I find that statement offensive, Professor, as a Sicilian. So, yes, Sicilians are proud of being Sicilian, which means if you ask a Sicilian, are you a Sicilian first or are you an Italian first? A lot of Sicilians will say Sicilian first. But we are both. A Sicilian is an Italian. So, the difference between Sicilian and Italian is that all Sicilians are Italian, but not all Italians are Sicilians. To help you understand that, Professor, we can do it this way. All Texans are Americans, but not all Americans are Texans. All Californians are Americans, but not all Americans are Californians.